Life, wisdom. I'm Psyche Truth correspondent Karina Rachel, and today on the Truth Talks, I'm talking with Dr. Vincent Belanzi, who recently wrote a book entitled Health Recklessly Abandoned. Now, the second chapter of this book is called Real Food, and in this video, I'm going to figure out exactly what that means. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for joining.
So as I mentioned, chapter 2 of your book is entitled Real Food, and that somewhat implies that maybe there's fake food out there. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what are these fake foods that you're recommending people avoid?
Unfortunately, we've gotten a lot into processing of food, mainly for convenience. If you think about it, your food is transported, it has to have a certain shelf life. The grocer can't make money if things are going bad before he can sell them to you. So with all this going on, they've tried to find ways to extend foods, make them last longer, make them not go bad. But as you start adulterating and preserving foods, they no longer have the value for you. So the processing of food has made food unhealthy. We have these big companies spending a lot of money advertising, telling people that what they are putting out there is the same as what their ancestors may have eaten as original food, but it's not the truth. If you look at what they're doing to these foods, again, they're no longer what I would call real food. And a lot of it is because of the additives they're putting into them. First of all, they'll take an original food and pulverize it into a flour and then put food coloring and make it marketable. And then they want it, again, to not go bad. So they'll throw some preservatives and some pesticides in there, and then it'll sit on the shelf. If it can sit on the shelf for 2 years, what makes you think it's going to have any value for you? But it's the system that we have in place now. And again, you've got big companies out there, ConAgra, Monsanto, they're modifying foods genetically, they're changing the food for their profit and convenience, but not necessarily for your health. It's all around what they can do to get higher yields, to make things pesticide resistant. For example, Monsanto makes Roundup Ready crops now, and they actually used a bacterium that will make the plant harm insects. But guess what they found? They found that same bacteria also harms people.
Oh, wonderful.
So they're finding damage to the intestines and other problems. So when we do things to foods, then we're going to get the same result that they may have intended for, say, an insect. And you look at genetic modification, if you change a protein structure, it does different things in the body. And modify genetics, you modify proteins, you're getting different results. So it's no longer the same as you would get from what I'm calling a real food. You're getting something that has possible damage and adulteration to it. Again, would you go eat some pesticides? Yet many foods actually contain pesticides because you don't want, bugs and things to eat the food. So it's a real problem that people really believe they're doing well when they're eating all of these things.
Right. So even we'll see healthy choice meals or,
Marketing.
smart ones and different things like that. And then, I'll actually turn the thing over and read it and I'm going, man, that thing has like 90 ingredients in it or something.
Yeah.
All
And
these all these really long, chemical names. And yeah, it really does. You get that impression that, this isn't real food. This has clearly been, manipulated. And so, of course, in terms of the different motivations behind, these processing of foods and coloring of foods, certainly you make a great point about just for them to be preserved, just for them to be able to last long enough that they get shipped all the way across the country or whatever and then have to continue lasting. But then also just to encourage people to buy them and making different flavors and different chemicals that may even be addictive potentially. Are there actually addictive chemicals placed in some of these foods?
Yeah, well, sugar to some extent is addictive, and some of the other chemicals can be addictive. Of course, everybody probably has heard about MSG. There's aspartates. There's a lot of things they add to foods just to enhance their flavor. So you're thinking, ooh, this tastes real good, but if you took that enhancement out, you'd think it was cardboard. So we do things to drive people to buy those foods, and people thinking that they're okay with them when they're not. And let's look at corn syrup. Most foods out there processed now have added corn syrup. And the reason is it's cheap. Now, it's not cheap to you. You're paying for it if you pay taxes. Remember that corn is subsidized. So we can take this corn, make corn syrup. We have this relatively less expensive to buy sugar. But fructose, unless you're taking it in small amounts from a piece of fruit, is actually, I call it a ninja, because it sneaks into the body and it does damage before your body's made a response, because your body's looking for glucose. So in some senses, you're actually safer with table sugar than you would be with fructose. But if you read most of the labels of the food you're eating, you'll probably see high fructose corn syrup or some form of processed concentrated fructose. It's more dangerous for you.
Certainly.
So if you look at we call them food-like substances. If you look at those things, we're actually creating health problems. They're one of the reasons people gain weight. And people are afraid of eating fat. The fats in these processed foods are altered fats that are dangerous for you. I might have you avoid fat for that reason, but you need fats. However, you need good fats. So you want to eat good natural fats. They're necessary. They're essential. But if you're getting all your foods as all your fats as processed fats in these food-like substances, then you're getting altered fats that do damage to you, and a lot of damage. There's a reason that they passed a law to take trans fats out of foods, because they do a lot to damage how the body functions.
Right. So can you maybe give us some more examples of what you would call fake foods or these food-like substances? Of course, we know fast food and pretty much any junk food would probably fall into that category, but what are some other examples that people maybe don't think of?
Yeah, I love Barry Sears because one of his sayings is to stay out of the middle of the market. And if you look at the design of most supermarkets, if you don't go into the center, then you'll be safe, because they put all the real food on the outside, for the most part. But I'm talking about all the boxed and packaged things. You've got to consider that many things are plastic lined. We're finding BPAs in kids and adults' urine now. And it's coming a lot from the packaging of things, because everything's packaged in plastic. And then if you're eating canned foods, they're lead lined. People are picking up lead. So the packaging itself tends to taint the food-like substance. And then you're eating something that's gone through some processing to no longer be what it originally was. And the body's kind of puzzled as to what to do with all this stuff. And you're poisoning yourself to some extent. You're creating a different function. You're affecting nerves and blood vessels and just the whole operation of the body because of these contaminants. And then many times the processing has removed the nutrients. If I eat a whole grain as a hot cereal, I could make a case for some nutritional value there. But if you eat most cold cereals, they've been so highly processed, it's just flour with food coloring. So, and then there's added sugar on the kids' versions. So it's not food anymore. It'll keep you alive, but it won't keep you healthy.
Right. So what are maybe some other, of course, weight gain? We recognize that, if people want to lose weight, we would recommend, the real food. But what are some other potential health issues that you think might be caused from consuming these food-like substances? Well,
again, a lot of the contaminants are going to poison you. And when you get these chemicals in the body, eating pesticide is not a healthy thing. And we could make many examples there. So you're getting these contaminants in, and then you're not getting the nutritional value. If I just eat cold cereal all day, I'm going to be missing a lot of nutrients. And there's a situation, Dr. Bruce Ames came up with this first, and there's a lot of research going on in clinical nutrition. They talk about triage. You know how triage in the hospital, you set priorities, the French word for setting priorities. Well, your body does triage. So let's say you spend an entire day eating flour and sugar and processed foods. Where have your nutrients come from? Even if you take maybe a multi, are you really getting the nutrients that your body needed? If not, it has to perform triage because of the deficiency. Your body starts shutting things down. You may not burn fat as well. You won't be able to do other things as far as staying healthy. You won't be able to fight flu and cancer and things like that because you don't have the nutrients in place.
Wow. So simply a nutritional deficiency in and of itself could be responsible for an entire, organ system to shut down?
We call them nutrients because they're required.
Right.
They're necessary.
So in terms of, we see a lot of questions about mental health and depression, and we've tried to offer some tips and helpful information on our channel in regard to those things. But it sounds like what you're saying is that simply a nutritional deficiency, for instance, could cause the systems that are related to your emotions and your energy and your mood.
Oh, definitely.
So you could literally have depression or some of these other mental illnesses, so to speak, as a result of just a nutritional deficiency?
Well, first of all, if you don't feel good, you're probably going to suffer some depression. And the answer is not to go get a pill to raise your mood artificially. There's a whole science called orthomolecular psychiatry, and those doctors actually use some medication, but they use a lot of nutrients. Abram Hoffer is one of the most famous ones. He found that in many cases of schizophrenia, if he used high doses of vitamin B3, niacin, and if you eat a lot of corn products, you actually decrease the niacin amount. That's the reason for some actual outbreaks of schizophrenia. They got niacin back in, and the schizophrenia disappeared again. But he treated a lot of people with high doses of vitamins, maybe some medication, but many of his cases actually resolved. And schizophrenia, originally was thought that it couldn't be corrected, but he corrected them. Not every single case, but many of his cases. So actually, vitamins do play a big part. So do fats. You got to be able to manufacture hormones and neurotransmitters and everything that would help you control your mood. It's a mind and body thing. They're not separate entities. So you have to have it all working together.
Very interesting. So let's talk, we've talked a lot about these fake foods or food-like substances, but let's talk about real food. What are the things that you do encourage people to eat?
Well, think about what your body evolved to eat. What did your ancestors eat? They've identified over 240 vegetables, but I can't tell you how many people I run into that just tell me, I'll have a 50-year-old man telling me I don't like vegetables, talking like a 2-year-old, and I'm not sure what to say to that person. Vegetables have such value. It's jam-packed with nutrients, phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals. You get all this nutrient density and very few calories, but enough. You can get all of your calorie requirement from veggies. And the problem is that people don't like them. In fact, they try to grow veggies. They tried to come up with a broccoli that tasted better, and they did, but it had no nutritional value anymore. So you've got to consider foods the way they come off the farm, and not a big industrial farm, but think more of the little farmer, the organic farmer. Those original foods in the same composition that your ancestors ate, that's what you should be looking for. So you really, for health, need vegetables. Sometimes they're not available for people, but in this country, they're around. So we don't have to be the little child in Ethiopia that only gets rice. I mean, here you can go get some veggies. There's a real value to that. You need good protein. You need good source of protein. You have to have good fats. And you can use some fruits. But these are real foods. An apple's real. It doesn't require a label. It doesn't have any additives.
Right.
Maybe they sprayed some pesticide on it. Maybe you should buy organic for that reason. But real food, actual food the way it comes.
Very interesting. So I think it's great you brought up this idea of, people who are grown adults. Oftentimes they are grandparents, and they make that comment, I don't like vegetables. And it's just so absurd because, as you pointed out, there's like 240 more than that probably vegetables out there. And it's like, wait, if you really sat down and you've tried every single vegetable there is and you don't like a single one of them,
obviously they haven't, but yeah.
Right, of course, and then one of the things, in my own personal experience is that you can do a lot with the way that you prepare foods. Absolutely. And the different flavors that you add to foods. Mm-hmm. It's certainly, when people kind of relegate themselves to feeling like, oh, if it's healthy, it can't taste good. That's just kind of a bass-ackwards way of thinking.
It is.
So, well, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I want to thank you for tuning in. If you would like to learn more, then I highly suggest that you check out Dr. Balanzi's new book. It's entitled Health Recklessly Abandoned, and it offers not only some tips about real food, but overall tips for improving your health, losing weight, and taking control of the way that you're feeling. So I want to thank you for watching. I hope that you will like this video if you enjoyed it. Be sure to share it with your friends and subscribe to Psyche Truth so you can catch us again next time. Thank you so much.